In this video, we're going to look at amortization tables. This is a follow-up to our discussion of mortgages and home buying. So amortization tables are charts that the lending institution who's giving the mortgage will prepare, and sometimes they're called amortization schedules or amortization tables, and these schedules show what part of the monthly payment is going toward the principal and then what part is going toward the interest each month. Right? So really we used R to stand for monthly payment. So out of that R, some of that money is going towards interest, and then some of that is going towards the principal of the mortgage. And that's really all this schedule does. It just looks at the breakdown of where that money's going. All right, so here's the procedure, and then I think this will be best if we just try an example and put some numbers to this. But here's what the table looks like. So we have usually a list or like a column here. It tells us what payment number we're on. So number 1 would be like the very first payment in the mortgage. By the time you get to like the 30th payment, you would be 2.5 years into paying off the mortgage, and so forth. Okay. Then other columns for that payment, we would look at the breakdown. So some of that money is going to go to interest, some's going to go to principal, and then we also have a running total at the end here, the balance of the loan. So that's how much money is left on the principal of the mortgage that needs to be paid off. All right, so here's the procedure. To find interest for each month, we're going to be using I equals PRT. Right, so pause for a minute there. We did say that this is compound interest, and yet we're using this simple interest formula. Right, so remember that that compound interest is based on simple interest. So back when we talked initially about how to find compound interest, we did use I equals PRT, but we just kept modifying that principal each time and adding the interest into the principal. Right? So if you just wanted to do I equals PRT, it only works if you're looking at a single compounding period. Otherwise, you need to make modifications to the principal, and there's no way to do that for multiple months of a mortgage. Right? So we're doing this only because we're looking at just a single month, a snapshot of this mortgage. Time then is going to be 1/12. So if we're using R as an annual rate, we would want the time in years as well. So 1 month would be 1/12 of a year. Next step would be to subtract. All right, so we'll find the interest for the first month. Then we subtract that from the monthly payment, and we see whatever's left would go towards principal. Okay, and then the last step to find the balance of the mortgage, we'll take that amount that was paid towards the principal and subtract it from principal and see what's left that we owe. Okay, and then we just repeat, but we'll keep using the amount of the balance, whatever's left on the mortgage, as the new principal when we go into the next step. Okay, so let's try this out for the example that we looked at in the last video. So we had a family, their mortgage principal was $139,920. Their mortgage was one for 5.5%, and if they went with the 30-year mortgage, then they had a monthly payment of $794.45. Okay, so knowing all of that, let's compute the interest for the first month. So we'll do I equals PRT. P is the principal, since we haven't paid anything yet, right? And then rate, so we convert the percent to a decimal, 0.055, and then time is 1/12. All right, so calculating that on your calculator, you can multiply the first two numbers, and then you can just divide by 12 if you want to multiply by 1/12. So that's going to give 641.30, and that's the amount that goes to interest that first month. Okay, then the payment to principal, so we're going to take the monthly payment R, and we're going to subtract that interest, and then whatever's left is going to be that payment to principal. So that's $794.45, subtract 641.30. So actually most of the monthly payment is going to interest, and then What's left is $153.15, and that's going towards paying off the mortgage. Okay, and then the last column, to find the balance of the loan, we're going to take the current balance, which at this point is just the principal. We haven't paid anything yet. This is the first payment. So take that principal and subtract the payment on principal, so that's the number from the previous column, $153.15, and then that gives the new balance of the loan, and that turns out to be $139,766.85. All right, and then we just repeat. So for the next payment, to find interest, we do I equals PRT again, but this time what we're using for the principal is going to be just the current balance of the loan. So this time we're going to use the $139,766.85. And then if you do that, so we've paid off a very small amount, so we're going to be charged a little bit less interest. This month the interest is $640.60. Okay, so that's the amount of interest for the second month's payment. Then payment on principal. So we have a constant monthly payment. This is not a situation where we have graduated payment. So we're still going to take the R that we've had all along, $794.45, that monthly payment, and now we're subtracting the interest for the month. So that's the $640.60, and then whatever's left, that's going to be the payment on principal. So this month it's $153.85. Okay, and then finally we want the balance of the loan. So we would continue to take the current balance and subtract what we just paid to that balance. So this time the current balance is what's left over from the previous month, $139,766.85, and then you would subtract the payment on principal for that month, $153.85, and then that gives the balance for this month. So that's going to be $139,613. All right, and that's it. So these schedules would just continue for the entire length of the mortgage. So this is just the first 2 months. We would have, 30 years of 12 payments per year. So this would be quite a long schedule. So we're definitely not going to calculate the entire thing by hand. Now the application here, in real life, you probably would not put this together yourself. This would be given to you, but it is kind of helpful to just know, first of all, what this even is, be familiar with the terminology, and then now that you've seen the math that goes into making this, now you can understand how this is put together, and that gives you a feel for, sort of the size of the numbers that should be in these rows and columns, and hopefully just helps you better understand these amortization schedules.